What if the employee returns from holiday in an affected area but has no symptoms? If you haven't already, I recommend that you notify staff that they must inform you where they've gone on holiday, where they're going on holiday, and if they're coming back, where they've been. The reason being is you can check then what's on the government websites about the affected areas and whether they might be at risk of exposure to the virus. One of the things I was talking to a client about recently was whether you need to put in a buffer time between when they land in the UK and when they return to work. Now, I don't know how effective this will be in terms of preventing the virus, but you could consider, for example, saying that they have to have a minimum of 48 hours symptom-free from landing to returning to work. It's about communication, so communicate with staff on this and decide what you're going to do. What if the employee has possible exposure and is advised to remain at home by a medical professional? There's been a lot of talk and emails amongst employment law professionals about this because of statutory sick pay. Really, what we were looking at from an academic perspective is whether if somebody's fit to work but actually been told to stay at home, do they qualify for statutory sick pay? Actually, there is provision in there for this kind of situation. So the law is saying, and actually it's coming straight from the government, so Matt Hancock himself said that self-isolation for health reasons is something that qualifies for statutory sick pay. So in those circumstances, if they're advised by a medical professional, so a doctor, a GP, 111, all of those kinds of things, then they would qualify for statutory sick pay. So what about contractual pay? So again, some of you might offer enhanced pay for people who are off sick for a period of time. Some employers do it for a couple of weeks, some do it for 6 months. You need to look at your contracts and what your policies say about contractual sick pay as to whether it would qualify in these circumstances. And according to Public Health England, it is 14 days. So again, you have to factor that into your planning and how you're going to deal with this if you have a number of employees out. According to some statistics on the BBC website, they say 1 in 5 are going to be off all at once. So if you think about how that works in your organisation and how that would impact you and the business, again, that goes back to your business continuity planning. The other question is, what if you decide to close the workplace and advise people to stay away from the office? Now, in circumstances in which you can allow people to work from home, so you have those options available to you, then of course they would just continue to work and they would be entitled to pay as normal. But if you have people who are unable to work because you've closed and they can't work from home, then you are required to pay them full pay. There isn't any way of getting around that. If it's your decision to close the workplace, they're not being told to self-isolate by a medical professional, then you do have to pay them full pay. So what if an employee has the virus? Okay, it might seem fairly obvious to you. If they have the virus, they mustn't come to work and they've got to stay away. You, as an employer, have an obligation of health and safety for your other employees. So that means that you have to ensure that if someone has the virus, that they are staying away. What if somebody has a nervous disposition or is worried and wants to stay at home? Well, as easy it is to be quite flippant about it, I would say you have to treat it with sensitivity and understand that everybody has a different perspective on it. You need to treat them with empathy and understanding, and I would start by having a chat with them, see what their fears are, what's the problem, why do they want to stay at home, try to come to some kind of compromise with them, and ways in which you can help to allay their fears. What if an employee refuses to stay at home? Again, this just goes back to the person who has the virus. It's just making sure that you communicate to them the reasons why they're being told to stay at home and to isolate, and that you ensure your duty of care to the rest of the staff. What if an employee cannot attend work because their child's school or nursery is closed? Now, I know in other countries in Europe, they've started to close schools and things, and some of these are long-term. In the event that the school is closed, the normal rights in relation to time off for dependents applies. So that is, you can have time off for dependents to deal with an emergency situation such as a school closure. And it is an emergency situation, and it is short-term, and it's unpaid leave is the legal right. It may be that this becomes long-term. It might be, up to 14 days or longer, and it may be that there are no alternative arrangements that can be made. let's just say worst case scenario, all the schools are closed, people are self-isolating, you just can't make alternative arrangements for childcare. So in that situation, you need to consider how you're going to deal with it and what you're going to do with the member of staff, whether you're going to pay them for that time, how you're going to manage it, particularly if you have a large workforce that has a number of people with children.